Hi everyone. So in this session, we're going to look at sustainable practices and circular economy. So last time we talked about lots of sustainable food networks and food security. If you haven't seen that one, please check out the other recording available and you'll be able to catch up on that if that would be of use to you. This one is going to be more about reducing down our resource use and looking at how we can become more circular rather than linear. So, waste. In 2018, the UK generated 222.2 million tonnes of waste. So England was responsible for 84% of that total. That's a massive amount of waste. And this has come from national government statistics. So it's really a big problem and we need to look at how we can make a difference. So before I share the support resources we have on offer for you, I wanted to go over the principles of what a circular economy is. So it's part of our solution to our global climate emergency. It's one in which products, services and systems are designed to maximise their value and minimise waste. Whereas a linear economy is what we've become. So that's what we use mainly in our daily lives. We buy something, we use it, we throw it away. And in recent years, we have started to look at the benefits of recycling. So we will buy something, reuse it, donate it, or repurpose it, and then recycle. But the ultimate goal of a circular economy is to design out waste. So it's our responsibility to make sure that we are buying with purpose. So production where businesses which supply products and services get a maximum life and value for those natural resources we're using to make them. So recycling really is the very last result. It's almost the same as putting things in the bin, which technically we are just a recycling bin. It's more about questioning if we need something or if it can be fixed or repaired, but actually manufacturers are starting now to question whether it can be redesigned before we look at reuse. So can we design out waste in what we do in our settings? So there are different resources for this one. So how long till it's gone? This is looking at how long it takes different waste materials to break down when they're sent to landfill, in which bin. So looking at recycling and are we putting the right wastes into right bins? The 7 R's of sustainability. So what can we do personally to make small changes that have big impacts? Understanding plastic. So is plastic just plastic or is there different kinds of plastic? Can it, can't it? So an extension of that. And recycling plastics. So what can they become after we've finished using them for their original purpose? So how long till it's gone? Humans have been disposing of waste in the same way for thousands of years. We've been burying leftovers in a hole in the ground or creating a designated area for rubbish. So ancient rubbish tips are known as middens, and their shards of pottery and tool are a source of fascination for archaeologists world over. But modern scrap heaps or landfills contain the relics of our consumer society: electrical equipment, rotting food, paper, cardboard, wood, plastic, and building materials. Like our ancestors, we still throw rubbish into a hole in the ground, landfilling, or pile it up, which is land raising. Despite an increase in recycling in the UK, we still throw away over 6 million tonnes, which ends up in landfill each year. So landfills have systems in place that prevent or slow down biodegradation and decompostation. This keeps them from sinking and becoming unstable. So it does mean that any organic waste that goes to landfill can take up to 2 years to break down, compared to when it's composted, which may only take around 5 days. So there's no enzymes to break down this waste because it's in a plastic bag, so it's in the bin bag. It's surrounded by other things like plastic and cardboard. So it's not getting anything from soil, which is what it needs to be able to start to break down. So it just sits there in that plastic bag against other plastic bags in a hole in the ground. So we should all be concerned about what happens to waste in landfill, because the process is a major source of pollution and contributes to global warming. So a lot of the stuff that ends up in landfill contains toxic substances that's discarded from computers, other appliances, and other nasty stuff with heavy metals and solvents and acids. Water filters through this waste in landfill and forms a highly toxic, foul-smelling liquid. Materials such as PVC and e-waste leach these toxic chemicals as they break down. And landfill sites release methane, a greenhouse gas that's between 28 and 34 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And so landfill sites in the UK are responsible for roughly around 20% of our methane emissions. Old disused landfills are also a concern, as they're increasingly exposed by coastal erosion, flooding and rising sea levels related to climate change. And there's around 20,000 old landfills in the UK. 5,000 of them exist in areas at risk of flooding and that erosion. So landfill really isn't an option anymore. And most landfill sites in the UK have closed. However, there are still some that are operational, and we really need to move away from that. But did we know that 99% of the things we buy becomes waste within 6 months? So that just goes to show what a consumer society we have become. So in this activity, we're looking at different items that we might only use once and throw away. So if we were to throw them away and send them to landfill, how long would it take for these things, if they were in soil, to decompose down? So one of these is 1,000,000 years, and actually we don't know for certain because nobody is 1,000,000 years old, but we know that it's not going to be anything under that. And then up to 6 weeks. So that's a massive difference in time. But really, we should be asking ourselves 3 questions. Do I need it? Do I want it? Is there an alternative? So things like a plastic cup or a plastic bag, do I really need to use one of those? Could I use an alternative? And if the answer is yes to both of those, then really there's an easy switch and change to be made. So in this resource, we look at how we use our bins. So it's often hard to know what goes in the different bins that we're provided by our councils. This is also not made any easier because different local authorities have different guidelines. So there's no national campaign or guidance to how this is operated, hence why everywhere is different and has different coloured bins. However, contaminated recycling is a massive issue and can prevent all waste in that bin being recycled. So if there's one thing in a whole bin of recycling that's contaminated, the whole lot goes into the black bin waste rather than being recycled. So this can range from things like food being left in containers to the wrong items completely being put in the bin, like carrier bags. 84% of UK households contaminate their recycling. So when I've done activities around this with young people and shown them various different items, they think they should go in the recycling bin, but actually they can't. So if we think about a tube of toothpaste, yes, it's plastic, so in theory we can recycle it. On the packet, it probably says recyclable, but it's only recyclable if we cut it open, clean out all the residue toothpaste in there, and then let it dry and put it in our recycling. So if we finish using it and we put it straight in the bin, unfortunately that can't be recycled because it is not clean. Batteries are a massive problem. So we can recycle those, but you do have to take them to designated points like supermarkets, but they can cause up to 700 fires per year, and it costs councils around about £158 million in dealing with fires if we put them into our general waste bins. And this is only increasing due to small electrical items that include batteries within them that might be sealed units. So things like vapes also start fires, and this is on the increase. So we need to really think hard about those types of items. Despite everything that we do here in the UK, we are ranked 17th in the world for our recycling rates. South Korea, Sweden and Japan take the top 3 spots, so they're better than us at recycling. So we've still got a long way to go. So we've got an example here of some different bins. Apologies if these colours don't match your local authority colours, hence why we've put the words on there as well, so you know what we are talking about. And then we've got some items here that the children can match up and put in the right bin. You could do this with real items. So if you have got waste in your HAF provision, you can have different coloured tubs or tubs with signs on them and see if the children can sort things out into the right bin. And then the answers are on there for you as well. So textiles often comes up and does get missed quite a lot. So clothing and textiles is an area that is growing because of fast fashion. So these items cannot go in your household recycling bin, and nor should they go in your waste bin either. An average of 75 tonnes of clothing is put in recycling bins across the Peterborough, Cambridgeshire area every single year. And that costs the taxpayer around £10,000 a month to remove it from this waste. So in contrast, if these items were passed on in the correct way, they could raise £20,000 per month for good causes. So we can double their money, or we can cost ourselves money. Seems a no-brainer, doesn't it? We don't have a challenge card for this, but I thought it would be a good idea to share this with you and also talk a little bit about how we can make sure that we're part of the solution and not the problem. So we all know about donating good usable clothes to local charity shops. We can offer swap shops. Really good idea if you're linked to a school and school uniform, especially for your summer HAFs, where children might be moving up to a different school, or they might have outgrown their uniform. So having that swap shop on site is a really good idea and very cost efficient for parents as well. And taking them to donation points. If we've got damaged items, we can take them to a repair cafe and learn how to sew or how to patch. If we've got textiles that are completely at the end of their life, so they're stained or they're ripped or damaged beyond repair, then actually we can still donate those to charity. So we can put them in bags so long as we mark them as end of life clothes or end of life textiles. Charities will still take them away and they will get money for those based on weight. And then those fabrics and textiles will be broken down and then reused from there. So there's no reason for any textiles to be going into our landfill or general waste bins. So I mentioned earlier about the 7 R's of sustainability, but what does that actually mean? So it's meeting the needs of today without compromising the needs of tomorrow. So that's what sustainability stands for. So if I chop down every tree in the world today to build a house and keep myself warm and make lots of furniture out of, that meets my needs. But what about tomorrow when someone else needs to build a house or keep warm? There's nothing left for them to use. So that's a really easy way of explaining how that works to a young person. Only 17.4% of our electronic waste is recycled. So in 2019, our electronic waste worldwide was around 53.6 million tonnes. So that's increased by about 21% over the last 5 years. But that's 17.4% is a small amount of what's being recycled. So we can take electronic waste to local supermarkets and it will be broken down for its various different components. There's lots of metal in there, precious metals as well, plastics, glass. It can all be split up and recycled. And in some cases, things can be repaired and then sent overseas or reused in other locations. So the 7 R's are basically there for us to rethink what we're using, rethink how we use it, rethink how it's designed, reduce what we're using, refuse to use items. So I can have a drink without needing a straw in it. So I can refuse to have the straw. I can rot things down. I can compost if they're organic. I can repair, I can reuse, and then ultimately the very last thing is recycle, because obviously it takes resources to be able to recycle any item, whether that be water or energy or transportation. So we need to consider, yes, recycling is better than putting things in our general waste, but actually it's at the bottom of our sustainability list. So we have an activity for this, for young people to get involved with. So we've got this poster, the 7 R's of sustainability, and you can put something in the middle of that and ask these 7 questions. So if I was to put my mobile phone in the middle, I could ask, can it be recycled? Yeah. Can it be reused? Yes, if it's not completely damaged. Can it be repaired? Maybe, depends on the phone. We do know that phone manufacturers now are designing and creating phones that can be fully taken apart and components replaced and repaired to make them more sustainable. Can it be rotted down? Probably not. It's not an organic item. Can I refuse it? So is there an alternative? Yeah. So we know that every time a new iPhone is released, people all go out and buy the new iPhone. Well, actually, do I need that? My last one's only 3 months old, so I can refuse to buy that one and keep my phone for longer. Could I reduce how many I have? Yeah, absolutely. So I could even keep it for 2 or 3 years if it's still working. And can I rethink it? Maybe not me personally, but manufacturers can. So you can repeat that activity with any item and get children to answer those questions. So plastics is a massive area, and lots of people talk about the negatives of plastic. But plastic is both a blessing and a curse. It can be amazing man-made material which can be used to make all sorts of important things like bike helmets, airbags, and medical supplies. Things made from plastic can save lives and bring clean water to people who wouldn't otherwise have access to it. The problem is we use more plastic than we need to. 50% of all plastics produced is designed to be used once and thrown away. The plastic bag was never designed to be used once. It was actually an answer to reusing the waste product of oil and to reduce down the chopping down of trees when people were using paper bags. And although most of this plastic can be recycled, it actually isn't. Only 9% of all plastic ever made in the history of plastic has ever been recycled. So recycling plastic is not always easy. It is time consuming, it is energy consuming, and it is expensive, especially when we are using more than ever. And in fact, we have produced more plastic in the last 10 years than we have in the last 100. So it is a massive problem that is growing year on year. So we have a resource here. So to identify different types of plastic, there are plastic codes on most things. And you can do a little plastic hunt in your sessions, get the children, young people to go around looking at different plastics and see if they can find these different triangles. As you can see, there's 7 different types of plastics. Not all of them can be recycled through our normal household recycling bin, but it's essential to be able to recognise which ones can and can't. If they can't be recycled in our general household bins, they often can be recycled in other ways. We just have to be a little bit more aware of them and maybe take them to specialist recycling locations or collection points. So, have you heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? It's the world's largest. It's 1.6 million kilometers wide. It weighs approximately 80,000 tons and is roughly 3 times the size of France. It's located in the North Pacific Ocean between Hawaii and California. So it's made up of buoyant plastic, which is growing year on year, and there's nearly 8.8 million tons of plastic ending up in our oceans every single year. So this is set to increase to 12 million tons by 2050 if we don't do something about it. So plastic is a really big problem, which we all kind of know, but hopefully this puts it into a little bit more perspective. So we've created a card. We talked earlier about can it or can't it, should I or shouldn't I? This is all to do with specific plastics. So all plastics can be recycled, but not always through our household waste because of our different processing plants, infrastructure, but also because of what is combined with that plastic sometimes. So we spoke about the need to wash and clean recycling. Black plastics can't go into your recycling either. That's because the recycling plants use conveyor belts that are made from black material, so therefore it can't be spotted. The systems can't see it. Soft plastics, so anything that crinkles and doesn't hold its shape when scrunched up. So film lids, plastic bags, wrappers, crisp packets, that kind of thing. So they can clog up machinery and get stuck, but often they're mixed with other materials. So like a crisp packet on the inside has foil, so there's metal in there that has to be separated out so that the plastic of the packet itself can be recycled. And other types of plastic like polystyrene, PVC, and other plastics from that type 7 triangle can't be recycled in your home recycling bin either. You'll see that there's a toothbrush on there that has mixed plastics. So obviously you have the bristles, which are one type of plastic, and the handle, which is a different type of plastic, and they're joined together. So it's very hard to separate those. So actually we can't put those in our recycling either. So that's a really good example of one of those where you can put in the middle of the 7 R's and say, is there a better way? Have manufacturers rethought this? And I'll leave that one with you without giving you the answer. So we can recycle plastics, but when we recycle them, what do they become? So within this area, we've got this one last challenge card, and it looks at how we can change something like a plastic bottle into something that's really useful, like a fleece or a hoodie. So it's really quite interesting to see what our waste can become if it's recycled in the right way. And you might be able to find some labels and some tags on things that say this has been made out of an old CD case or a plastic cup. There's lots of stationery items now that do that. And in fact, there's a trainer manufacturer out there that creates trainers, so the soles for trainers, out of old chewing gum, which sounds absolutely disgusting, but it's quite an ingenious way of dealing with that kind of waste. So just like with our food, we have created a 10 ways to become sustainable poster to keep it at the front of your mind. And we've also got some links here. So number 1, go natural. If you can use natural materials, use leaves and twigs and stones to create things. Make sure you think tiny. So microplastics are a massive problem, and they're finding their way into our soils. And because they're in soils, and water streams, they're being absorbed by our food. And so now plastic is an everyday part of our diet. So we are eating plastic. We don't realise we're eating plastic because they're so microscopic. And so things like glitter, if you've got old glitter left in a cupboard, are really devastating. So really think about those small items you might be using where actually we can have bigger impacts. So we may need to print certain things off, but do we need to print everything off? Do you use recycled paper? And some recycled paper is bleached. So if it says it's recycled and it's white, it's not particularly good for our environment because it's been bleached down. If it's recycled and it's kind of that grey yellow colour, that means it's fully recycled, it's not been bleached. That's much better for our environment. So it's worth checking. Also, if you're using hand towels, disposable ones in your setting, if they are green or blue, then they are worse for our environment because of the dyes that are used in them. So the white ones are much better. So again, there's little things that we can do that will have better impacts. We can reuse things. Now, there's probably stuff that you use in your settings that you might only use once, or you might only need at certain times of the year. So you might want to make ice cream with your groups in the summer. You're not going to necessarily do that every time. So there's places like Library of Things. There's one in Peterborough, one in Cambridge, and you can go along and you can borrow items either for free or for a small fee. That will save you the cost of buying them. So an ice cream maker, you can go along, borrow for a couple of quid, make ice cream with your kids, take it back. Much more cost efficient, and equally it makes sure that that item gets used over and over again rather than someone buying one and it's sitting in a cupboard. Really useful for at home as well. They do decorating items and DIY items, all sorts of things, so check them out. You can join a recycling scheme. So if you're in a permanent location, you can check out TerraCycle, and on there they will invite you to join one of their schemes. So crisp packets is one of their schemes. You can collect them up and then box them up and send them off to them, and they will recycle them. So it's worth checking out what they've got going on. And in some cases, there is a small donation fee that comes back to you for doing that service. So swap shops we have spoken about, but there is this link here for Recycle Now, which can tell you what things can be recycled, what things can't be recycled, and where other swap shops might be. So there's all sorts of ones that exist, from toys to books to clothes. So again, worth having a look at. So the redirectory is a really good location to have a look at a list of places you can either take things to be donated, repaired, or refilled. And you can even contact your local repair cafe to see if they would run a session for your young people that are attending your HAF session. So lots and lots of links and resources in there. Go plastic free. Think about everything that comes in plastic and how you can reduce that. So there's a link there for your local refill shops. Composting, we talked about in the food session, but if you weren't in there, then Waterbeach Recycling Centre does free compost. That's where all of our garden waste goes to. It gets filtered down. They pile it up in a certain location at the front. And so long as you bring your own bag or container to take it home in, you can take as much as you like. So really good for your growing programs. And then remembering textiles. So please, please, please do not put textiles in your bins. It can be taken, donated, or recycled. So if it's end of life textiles, clothing, stuff that's ripped, damaged beyond repair, stained, then make sure you label the bag as end of life textiles or clothes. And that charity that you're donating that bag to will still get a donation based on the weight of that bag, and it will be disposed of responsibly and recycled. So I've got some really funky links for you next. These are really cool and really bring things to life. So the Ocean Cleanup Plastic Tracker is a really good one for children. So we can have a look at where we are. So we can put in our location. So let's put in Cambridge. There we go, UK. So if I was to drop a piece of plastic and it got into the water system, this is the route that it would take. So we could see how far it would go, where it might go around the world, how it would end up in our oceans, and how it might end up on the other side of the world. So this goes on currents and different streams of waves and tidals and all that kind of stuff. So that piece of plastic I dropped in Cambridge has ended up in the Arctic, and that's definitely not what we want to happen. So it really does kind of bring it to life a little bit. We've also got the waste clock, which is pretty cool. So I can say when I was born. Now you're all going to know how old I was. Let's put in 2015. That might be some of your children's age. It will tell me how much waste I've created in my lifetime. It will break it down into plastic and paper and cans, glass and food. So really lovely one if you want them to kind of have a competition between each other, compare how much longer they've lived on the planet to how much extra waste they've created while they've been here, and what they can do to make a difference. The world counts is a live world counter. So it's telling us exactly how many number of planets we need to sustain the growing human population as it is at the moment. It's also telling us how much tons of resources are being extracted from the earth live and how many tons of waste are dumped. Lots of other things as well that you can visit on that website. So again, really puts it into life perspective. The big battery hunt is something you could sign up to recycle batteries and create a competition with your young people. Something worth having a look at. You get lots of resources with that as well. A little battery box for the children to take home and fill with old batteries so they can go off and be recycled. And then because obviously everyone's waste collections are slightly different, we have put the links in there so that you can check out your own local waste collection in your area. So that's everything from me today. I've put the link there for you again. That's where you can find all of these resources plus all of our other resources. We hope you've found that useful and that you can go away and make some sustainable changes.